All right, welcome to Ethan Skolnick Starting Nine here on the Five Reasons YouTube channel. I'm Ethan Skolnick. If I wasn't, there would be a problem here. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick and at Five Reasons Sports. Make sure to hit like, subscribe, and turn the notifications on. We got a ton of messy content here on the channel from his workouts, everything else that's going on. It just seems like they're basically getting everybody. I thought the Heat was considered to be like, during the Big Three era, well, we just buy everybody. Well, it seems like that's what Inter is doing, except Inter is actually bad. So we'll see if they can turn this around. Also, of course, check out our Winnow feed. Well, we call it Off the Floor. Go to winnow.app/off the floor. You get text directly from us, me, Alex, Brady, and Greg, and we'll be continuing to do that. We are trying to find new content for there, but there hasn't been a lot of late. But we'll get into that here on the show. We are sponsored. Well, first, we are produced by Manny Chang. And we are sponsored, as always, here on Starting 9 or Starting 5. We used to call it Starting 9, but we always do it now before 9. By All Pro Construction Builders. Check them out at allproconstructionbuilders.com. That's allproconstructionbuilders.com. They're based in Dade, but they also service Monroe County and Broward County. All Pro Construction Builders on Instagram as well. We know that hurricane season, not only is it always around the corner, it's actually here right now. I know you don't feel it because of the heat, but it's here and the name storms are coming. Get your storm windows, get your storm doors. Also, they can do renovations for you if you want to stay in the property you're in, because we know the housing market kind of tight right now. Go to allproconstructionbuilders.com. Get your place looking nice. It's certified, state certified general contractor. They use locally made products. Again, it's 305-484-4429. Reach out to Danny and his family, which is his team, 305-484-4429. Of course, Danny is a big Miami Heat fan. Also, check out Prizefix. Use the code 5, FIVE. Get that initial deposit match up to $100. There are no rollovers with Prizefix. Literally, they give you the money and you play the money right away. We know there's not a whole lot to play right now if you're not a baseball fan, but they've got the futures on there. They got the futures for NFL. They got the futures for NBA. We've been doing NFL futures shows. So jump in on the props that you like now and claim your money from Prizepicks. Download from the Google Play Store, the Apple App Store, or prizepicks.com. All right, we're here. And honestly, I was trying to think about what to talk about today, because it's almost like the fan base wants us to move something along, but it's not us. I promise you. Sandwich. Has Miami actually made a reasonable offer, or are they still lowballing? Portland asked for the best offer as a different meaning depending on what the offer is. Look, okay, Miami was never going to put everything on the table at once. But it's not like the Blazers are unaware of what the Heat could offer, and it's also not relevant that they don't really want Tyler Hero, because Tyler Hero could be moved somewhere else. And there are a number of teams that would be interested in giving up a first-round pick for Tyler Hero. That is my understanding. So if that's the case, especially if one of those teams is the Nets, which helps the Heat unlock other picks, I'm a little bit confused myself at like what Portland doesn't understand. Again, these negotiations are not always like, here's my offer, here's your offer, okay, and then we're going to decide between the two offers or something like that. No, sometimes it's understanding the situation. The situation is the Miami Heat are not bidding against anybody. There's nobody else trying to get Dame right now. I mean, you could say the Heat are the only team crazy enough to take on the end of that contract, if you want to look at it that way. Now, I don't think they're crazy to do it, because I think Dame is that good, and I think Dame changes their whole trajectory of this build. But other teams have made the calculation that he's not worth it to them. So there's no white knight coming for Portland right now. So what have they offered? What have they not? I mean, look, I don't know the exact specifics. I know kind of what the framework of the initial offer was. I know this has been reported a number of different ways. Okay, that it was, first everybody, thought Caleb was going to be included, but my understanding was he was not. And then, Jovic and Jaquez, my understanding was that at the start, the Heat didn't include either of them. But again, if you're Portland, like, you know what to ask for, and we know that the Heat will end up giving you something because they want to get this thing done. Like, the Heat are motivated to get it done. I just don't think that the Heat have as much pressure on them as the Blazers will once camp starts. Some disagree with me on that. But I think that once camp starts, okay, the pressure goes to Portland as long as Dame stays strong, and I have no indications. Nobody has any indications that he's weakening in his position. He's strengthening. And as I've said many times, ESPN, NBA TV, they're going to go to Portland. And is this the way that you want to start the Scoot regime in Portland with this thing hanging over your head with Dame when he does not want to play for your franchise anymore? Nova King, just trade Dame so he gets a free agent. Portland's drying up our offseason. And we've looked at some of these guys. I understand there are players that would be useful to the Heat in a sort of low budget capacity. Saric was one, Beasley was another. There have been some guys out there who I think could have helped Miami. I know Christian Wood and others have been talked about, Oubre, and everybody's afraid they're going to go other places too. Look, first thing, I don't really think Miami was going to add more than one. If you look at their roster and kind of, the young players that they want to elevate, they've already elevated Orlando Robinson. They're likely going to elevate Jamal Cain. I think that they see roles for their two ways. Some of the ones that have played, I don't know if Peterson plays right away, but they have, Bouye, they have some players that they like who could be in sort of back end of the rotation or fighting for time type players. So I don't think there was a lot out there that it was like, okay, the Heat are missing out on this and it's worth. I mean, I do not agree with the take out there. Every time a player signs somewhere else, well, if the Heat would just give up on Dame, the Heat should not give up on Dame. Okay, Dame is the offseason right now, and they have to do that. Portland does not want to help Miami fill out their roster, but Miami will fill out its roster regardless. I don't think that when we did this yesterday, we did this exercise on playback. The Heat have too many players in the front court right now. Like, you add Christian Wood without subtracting, I don't know, two of the front court players for Dame, you're going to be crowded anyway. And remember, Orlando Robinson can't be traded until like late December. Hawkins can be traded in about a week and a half. But they've got a lot of guys up front, to the point that, we've said if Caleb's still here, he kind of moves more to the backcourt rotation because they're thin there. So you can say, okay, they could use a guard. But what guard was out there in the past, 2 weeks that they didn't sign that would have helped them significantly? I'm not sure there was a guy. So that doesn't concern me, and it certainly doesn't concern the Blazers. I just think as we get to more, as we get to where this is, okay, there's artificial pressure now. There's no time pressure in August. I mean, August is the dead NBA month. We typically stop podcasting during August, or at least we cut back. We're not going to cut back to quite the same degree. But I just think that when you look at August, it's more about looking ahead to September. And it's about the schedule coming out. It's about the Blazers wanting to pivot to a new era. And there's no team that's going to pop up there. In fact, with what's going on with Harden and with Embiid now in Philadelphia, I argue that makes it less likely for another team to pop in for Dame. Because if you're a team like, say, the Knicks, okay, you're going to hold whatever assets you have and whatever plan you have to get Embiid, not Dame. The Heat situation is different because they already have a top 5 center in the league. And yes, he is a center. We discussed this yesterday. And that center would have to be traded to get Embiid most likely. So you're not really in those sweepstakes, even though, certainly, obviously, Embiid and Jimmy, want to play together again. I don't really see the Heat in that. But if you're another team, if you're the Knicks, then you're looking at it, you're like, okay, why are we going to go throw our assets here at Dame and miss out a chance on Embiid? I mean, this is the thing about the NBA. There's always another disgruntled guy, okay? I have just felt that for the Heat, Dame is the last one who makes sense. And he's the one who makes the most sense. And he's always been the one who makes the most sense. He's been the one who makes the most sense for the past 2 years. More so than Beal, more so than any of the other guys we've discussed. Durant was always kind of a pipe dream. I know that, it got out that they were second in line for Durant. I don't really believe that was ever going to happen. And Mitchell, they wanted Bam. So that wasn't going to happen either. This is the one where you don't have to give up Bam and you can get an elite guy. You can get a top 10 offensive player, arguably top 5 offensive player still, who is still in his prime because he just came off his best season offensively. So this is the guy to go for. And so I'm not of the mind, that you worry about players that you're losing in the meantime. It doesn't matter. They'll fill it out. They'll fill out the roster. Pat's done this before, okay, with Shaq. I mean, by the time they made that trade, most of free agency was over. It was July 14th, I believe, that year. It ended up being Damon Jones starting, and they got Damon Jones played well, and they ended up getting all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals and probably went to the finals if Dwayne didn't get hurt. And then Damon wanted more money, and they told him to go get lost. But, I mean, the point is they find guys to fill in plug holes. When you have elite guys, they make everybody else better. Okay. So anybody that they plug in, even if it's a two-way guy playing with Dame, Jimmy, and Bam, that player is going to look pretty good in Spo's system. I'm not concerned about it. They don't necessarily need to add the Christian Wood headache because it seems like every team in the league is out on him for the same reason, which is lack of focus and kind of too big an ego and all the rest of this. Is he going to be okay, playing limited minutes and Spo not using him because he's got no defensive awareness? It's almost better not to add a guy like that, even if he's got talent. So getting back to it, okay, I think what's happening with Embiid and with Harden, and by the way, the national media's hypocrisy on the whole Harden situation is ridiculous. Okay, they simply, I mean, just really simple. They all love Morey because Morey leaks stuff to them. So like they're not going in on the Sixers, but they're also not going in on Harden, and it's almost like they're acting like they don't care about the Harden situation compared to the Dame situation. When the reality is, okay, Harden opted into that contract with the intention, with the plan of getting traded. So I can kind of understand, even though I'm not a Harden guy, why he might be irritated by this. But again, nobody seems to have an issue with the fact that he's really only named one team, like Dame. If Harden named Miami, everybody would be all over Harden. Dame's the one who named Miami, so that's where we are. So anyway, okay, here's where things are in my view, okay? I don't think that we're going to see this, okay, the Heat say, fine, take 2-3 more players, okay, and we're going to hear about the offer. We might hear that from like Woj because Woj is going to try to make Cronin look good. So he'll say, oh, well, the Cronin got the Heat to throw in more and more and more because he held his ground. He'll make it like some fucking, excuse my language, it's early in the morning, some Warrior analogy or something like that, what Joe Cronin did, okay? Which is ridiculous. Because the Heat have always been prepared to go a little further if they had to. But they don't have to right now. There's no other significant suitor. The Embiid situation, obviously holds certain teams back now. And I think things have moved more in the Heat's favor. That comes in from Aaron Anders. Take on more of this. I don't think it's because of Hero's ethnicity. I want to be clear on, I do think he's characterized a certain way because of his ethnicity sometimes. Okay. I do. But I don't think it has anything to do with trade discussions. Teams are not swayed by what people say on Twitter or whether a player is black or white to trade for him. I think that is ridiculous. Yes, I did curse. I'm sorry about that. This situation is frustrating. Okay. More cussing. Thank you, Martin. Say it again. I'm not, you know what, Chop? I'm not going there. It just slipped out. What can I say? But back to Hero. Look, I sympathize with Dan on this because I know what Levy was trying to do. He's basically telling you what Pat told him. Okay, we know this. I mean, I'm not giving away a trade secret here. I had Levitard on my show on 7 Night at Ticket in 2016 when all that Dwayne stuff was going on, and everybody kind of knew I was the one talking to Dwayne and he was the one talking to Pat. So we had ourselves, a 20-minute conversation on my show, basically where he was essentially representing Pat and I was representing Dwayne, and we tried to hash it out together. Okay, it's not a secret that Pat, texts Dan when he's frustrated. Okay, and he has sources in the upper level of the Heat, even above Pat. Figure that out. Okay, so I sympathize with him because he's trying to portray their position, and it got portrayed as his position. And they were simply saying because he gets involved in the race stuff all the time, and he loves the comparisons and the nuance and all of that and the way people are viewed, athletes are viewed because of race. That's Dan's thing. Okay. So that's kind of what he was saying. He was not saying, I don't think that the Blazers don't want Hero because he's white. That's kind of the way it got aggregated. God bless the aggregators. But that's not what he was saying. He's not saying it's because he was white. Okay. The Blazers are not interested in it because he's a guard. That's the reason. Like that's the bias. That's the prejudice. He's a guard. Okay. They have too many guards. They don't have any young bigs in their build. That's why I think Jovic makes some sense for them because he's 20 years old and he's a skilled player. He's a good kid. The Heat really liked dealing with him last year. He was everything they wanted and more. He just, in Spoelstra's view, wasn't ready to contribute, at that point of the season. We can argue about that. I think maybe he might have been, but again, I'm going to trust Spo in most of these situations. But I'm just saying, like, I understand where Dan was coming from on all that, and I understand why he was frustrated the next day. And I just think everybody's frustrated with this. And I'm also curious, and this is the one thing to throw into this. I'm curious at what point the league gets frustrated with this. It's not really good for the league. The transaction stuff is good for the league. More people are interested in the transactions than the games. But the rest of it, okay, like this standoff now where it looks like, none of the players want to play where they're under contract now that you've added Harden to it, now that you've got Embiid. It's not great for the league. And I would think if I was Adam Silver, you can't force anything, but I would think I would nudge. Okay. It's not a good look if Dame doesn't come to camp in Portland. It's just not. Okay. It's a franchise that is actually, even though they haven't had a ton of success of late, they've been one of the better NBA franchises, small market franchises for a while. They've had a lot of bad luck with Brandon Roy, with Greg Oden, some bad draft picks, injuries, all kinds of other stuff. Even all the way back to Sam Bowie over Jordan or Bill Walton getting hurt. They've had a whole bunch of different issues, but they've been a franchise that has captured the imagination of that city. They don't. I mean, they have a soccer team, but they don't have a professional football team, right? They have a minor league hockey team, but they don't have the Blazers are the thing there. And they had the jail Blazers for a little while. That was a bad look. But for the most part, again, it's a great building. The fans fill it. It's a bad look if this continues because it seems like one general manager is trying to keep his job. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Adam, behind the scenes, tries to make sure something happens here before camp. It wouldn't stun me. But what I'm still waiting for is the Chris Haynes, Dame Lillard sit down, because I think once that happens, that's ultimately what moves this along. All right, we were all over the place today with the exception of the cursing. Apologize for that. Most of you seem to like it. It's okay. Maddie Chang, thank you for producing. Oh, this is it. What do you think will be the final trade for all the teams involved? Here's what I think. Hero goes to Brooklyn. 25 first-round pick goes to Miami. That gets rerouted to Portland. Portland ends up with Jovic, Robinson, and 4 first-round picks. That's what I think ultimately happens. The Heat deal with Lowry in a different situation. Okay, I'd have to look at what the numbers look on that. But that's the framework. Maybe a couple pick swaps in there. I don't give a damn about pick swaps. I'm betting on the Heat to be better than the Blazers to the end of time. I don't care about pick swaps, but that's what I ultimately think happens. Hero ends up with the Nets, which honestly is a great fit for him. It's a great fit for him. He'll be their leading scorer, or he'll be there right there with Bridges. They will be likely a low-end playoff team, probably a 5 or 6 seed. He'll get the marquee in New York, but he won't have the bright lights of MSG, which sometimes that comes with more media pressure. But he'll be a big star. He'll have advertising. He'll be on. You'll go to the bus stops in New York and you'll see Tyler Hero. It's not the worst thing in the world. They send him to OKC or Utah. That's a different situation. All right, everybody, have a good day. We'll have more content as the day goes on.